We all love Halloween, don't we? The candy, the costumes, the thrill of the scare. We tell ourselves it's just for fun. We tell ourselves that the monsters aren't real. But have you ever stopped to look, really look, at the decorations on your neighbor's lawn? What if that skeleton wasn't made of plastic? What if the person behind the mask following you home wasn't a person at all? Tonight, I'm going to share 5 true nightmare fuel horror stories animated to bring these terrors to life and make you rethink every shadow you see on October 31st. These aren't movies. These are real nightmares experienced by people just like you and me. From neighbors with deadly secrets to strangers who hide in plain sight pretending to be children. By the end of this video, you might want to double-check that your front door is locked. Because sometimes the scariest thing about Halloween isn't the ghosts. It's the living. Let's get into this horror animation compilation. Halloween. It's the one night of the year when we invite the darkness in. We put on masks, we carve pumpkins, and we laugh at the macabre. We tell ourselves it's all in good fun. We tell ourselves that the skeleton on the neighbor's lawn is just plastic and the blood on the sidewalk is just corn syrup. But have you ever stopped to wonder, what if it isn't? What if the person behind the mask isn't a person at all? What if that decoration that looks so hyper-realistic is actually rotting? We live in a world where we are taught to be polite, to not ask questions, and to assume the best of people. But tonight, in this collection of animated horror stories, I'm going to share 5 true stories that will make you regret being polite. These are stories of neighbors with deadly secrets, strangers who hide in plain sight, and nights where the line between the living and the dead didn't just blur, it vanished. For the next 25 minutes, I want you to lock your door, turn off the lights, and ask yourself, are you really alone in the room right now? Because after you hear what I have to say in this horror narration, you might never look at a Halloween mask the same way again. I used to absolutely love Halloween. It wasn't just the candy or the movies, it was the atmosphere. There is something magical about the way a boring suburban neighborhood changes when the leaves turn brown and the fog rolls in. My neighbor and best friend Mark was an even bigger fanatic than I was. For us, October wasn't just a month, it was a competition. Every year, Mark tried to be the king of Halloween. He wanted the best costume, the scariest house on the block. But no matter how hard we tried, we could never match up to Mr. Black. Mr. Black was an elderly man who lived a few houses down. He had been widowed about a decade earlier. His wife, well, she was a vicious woman. She treated the neighborhood like dirt, but the one thing she loved was Halloween. When she died, Mr. Black kept her tradition alive. But he didn't just put up a few pumpkins. No, each year he created displays that were absolute nightmares, fit for the most disturbing horror stories. One year he built a pool of blood in his garden that looked so liquid, so fresh you could smell the copper. Another year, he covered the entire house in cobwebs and unleashed a horde of spiders. It was beautiful in a sick, twisted way. The whole neighborhood loved it. We waited all year to see what Mr. Black would do. But Mark couldn't stand it. He was jealous. He was an attention seeker, and it killed him that an old man could outshine him. Mark would spend thousands of dollars planning for months, and the weirdest thing, Mr. Black would set up his entire display in one day. One day. It didn't make sense. Mark was obsessed. He would say to me, "He's cheating. He has a crew or something. I'm going to catch him." 2017 came around. Mark was determined. He rented these expensive animatronics, corpses that crawled and screamed. He was so confident. On October 30th, Mr. Black's yard was empty. Mark was grinning, thinking the old man had finally given up. But the next day, on Halloween, we saw it. In the span of 8 hours, Mr. Black had turned his yard into a literal graveyard. There were bells attached to strings leading into buried coffins. And if you listened closely, you could hear muffled screams coming from under the dirt. The bells would ring as people walked by. It was terrifyingly brilliant. Inside the house, he had built a morgue. There were refrigerator doors rattling as if people were trapped inside, pounding to get out. Mark was furious. He was shaking with rage. "How does he do it?" he asked me. "Have you ever seen a truck? A workman? No, he's up to something. Next year, I'm gonna find out." A year passed. Halloween 2018. Mark called in sick to work. He told me he was going to spy on Mr. Black all day. Around noon, I was at my desk when my phone buzzed. It was a voice message from Mark. I played it. His voice was breathless, frantic, but filled with a dark excitement, like something out of a horror story. I knew it. I freaking knew it. "You won't believe what I just found. Mr. Black is a depraved monster. I'm going to call..." The message cut off. I tried to call back, straight to voicemail. I called again and again. By the time I left work, I had a knot in my stomach. Mark was never silent. I drove straight to his house. His wife Elise answered the door. She looked worried. She hadn't seen Mark since the morning. He said he was running errands and never came back. We decided to call the police. While Elise was on the phone with the cops, I felt drawn to Mr. Black's house. The sun was setting and the crowds were gathering. This year the theme was a harvest of horror. His yard was a field of tall, dry grass. You could barely see the front door. Amidst the grass stood these horrifying scarecrows. They were wrapped in old, filthy rags. The smell hit me instantly, the stench of rotting meat. Mr. Black always went for realism, but this was nauseating. I saw Mr. Black near the porch, ushering people inside for a tour. I shouted, "Mr. Black, have you seen Mark?" He didn't even look at me. He just shouted back, "In a minute, old friend," after the tour, and went inside. I stayed in the yard. The smell was overpowering. I found myself standing in front of one of the scarecrows. It looked wrong. The bits of skin visible through the holes in the rags didn't look like silicone. They looked like leather, like dried meat. My heart was pounding in my throat. I reached out a trembling hand to the scarecrow's mask. I pulled it off. I fell backwards, screaming, but no sound came out. It wasn't a prop. It wasn't a doll. It was a corpse, a decomposing human body wired up to stand. I scrambled back, gasping for air. I looked at the other scarecrows. I realized with horror that they were all people. They were all dead bodies at different stages of rot. And then I saw the last one, the one closest to the door. I knew those clothes. I knew that blue flannel shirt. I crawled over to it. I didn't want to look, but I had to know. I pulled the burlap sack off its head. It was Mark. His throat had been slit from ear to ear. His eyes were wide open, frozen in a look of absolute terror. He had been stuffed and mounted like a trophy. All those years, the realistic decorations, the blood, the cadavers, the screaming from the coffins, it was all real. Mr. Black wasn't a decorator. He was a serial killer. We had been applauding a murderer for a decade. The police arrived minutes later. They stormed the house. But Mr. Black was gone. He slipped out the back door and vanished into the night. He was never seen again. I don't celebrate Halloween anymore. The 31st of October is just a painful memory of what we let happen right under our noses. But I have a warning for you. If a new neighbor moves in and their Halloween decorations look just a little too real, don't go inside. Mr. Black is still out there, and he's always looking for his next masterpiece. This next story is a parent's worst nightmare. It proves that safety is just an illusion. It was my turn to take the kids trick-or-treating. My wife and I trade off every year. My son is 7 and my daughter is 9. We went to the popular main street in our neighborhood. You know the type. Tons of houses, elaborate animatronics, hundreds of kids running around. I was standing on the sidewalk, admiring a lawn display, letting my guard down for just a second. When my kids came back from the house, I noticed they weren't alone. There was another girl with them. She was about the same height as my daughter. She was wearing this strange homemade mask, just a piece of cardboard with holes cut out for eyes drawn on with a marker. My daughter ran up to me and asked, "Dad, can she trick or treat with us?" I looked at the girl. I didn't know who she was, but I figured she was a school friend. I said, "Sure," and we carried on. As we walked, I got this prickling feeling on the back of my neck. I turned around. Trailing about 20 feet behind us was a large man. He was wearing an angry cat mask. It was one of those cheap plastic masks, but the expression on it was furious. He wasn't trick-or-treating, he was just walking, watching. I thought, okay, maybe that's the girl's father. I tried to be polite. I slowed down and waited for him to catch up. "Nice weather tonight, huh?" I said. He didn't answer. He just stopped and stared at me through the eye slits of that cat mask. I tried again. "Is that your daughter?" I pointed to the girl in the cardboard mask. He nodded slowly, but he didn't say a word. I decided he just wasn't the chatty type. I walked back to the kids. We went on for another 15 minutes. Suddenly, my kids came rushing up to me. They grabbed my hands tight. "Daddy, we want to go home," my son whispered. I was surprised. "What? We've only been out for an hour." "Your bags aren't even half full." "Please, Dad, we want to go, now." I saw the fear in their eyes. I didn't argue. "Okay, let's go." I turned to wave goodbye to the man in the cat mask and his daughter. "We're heading out," I said. They didn't wave back. They just stood there on the sidewalk side by side, staring at us as we walked away. I kept glancing back over my shoulder. They didn't move. They just watched us until we turned the corner. When we were finally safe in the car, I asked my daughter, "Who was that girl anyway? Is she in your class?" My daughter looked at me with a confused expression. "She said she was your friend, Dad." I froze. "What do you mean?" "She told us she was a friend of yours," my daughter explained. "She said she was too shy to ask you if she could join us, so she told me to ask you instead." I laughed nervously. "I don't have any kid friends, sweetie." Then my daughter said something that made my blood run cold. "She wasn't a kid, Dad." "What?" "When she first came up to us, she wasn't wearing the mask. We saw her face. She was old. She had wrinkles like Grandma. She was an old lady pretending to be a kid." My son chimed in, his voice shaking. "She kept stealing candy from our bags when you weren't looking. And she kept touching my hair. That's why we wanted to leave. She smelled weird." I sat there in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel. An old woman dressed as a child, hiding her face with cardboard, and a silent man in a cat mask trailing us. Who were they? Were they scouting my children? Were they planning to grab them if I got distracted? We checked the candy when we got home. Thankfully, nothing was poisoned. We didn't call the police because technically no crime was committed. But thinking back, I regret that decision. I just think it's sick. There are people out there on Halloween hiding behind masks, pretending to be children, hunting for who knows what. This next story comes from a young woman who wants to remain anonymous. It happened during a college Halloween party, and it's a stark reminder that sometimes the monster is the guy offering to help you. She and her friend were invited to a huge house party in the wealthy part of town. We're talking a mansion with a pool, acres of land, and hundreds of students. She dressed as a belly dancer. Her friend was a nurse. The party was crowded. She wasn't a big drinker, but she had a cup of juice. At one point, some friends pulled her away for photos. She made a rookie mistake. She set her cup down. When she came back, she picked it up and finished it. She didn't think twice. About 20 minutes later, a man approached her. He looked normal, maybe late 20s. He walked right up to her and said, "Hey, your boyfriend is trying to call you. He sounds really worried." She patted her costume. She realized she didn't have her phone on her. She loved her boyfriend, and they always stayed in contact. Panic set in. The man said, "It's really urgent. Come use my phone. It's too loud in here." She followed him. He led her into a bedroom away from the noise. As soon as she stepped into the room, it hit her. It wasn't alcohol. It was like a sledgehammer to the brain. She felt weak, dizzy. The room spun. The man closed the door. He guided her to the bed. "Just lie down," he said. And then, darkness. She woke up to screaming. Her vision was blurry. She felt sick. She looked up and saw her friend, the nurse, standing over her, wiping her stomach with a napkin and yelling at someone. It took a moment for reality to focus. Her friend had gone looking for her when she didn't come back from the bathroom. She searched the house and finally checked the bedrooms. She found her unconscious on the bed, and that man, that stranger, he was doing shots of alcohol out of her belly button. He was licking salt off her chest while she was passed out cold. Her friend screamed at him, but he just laughed. He had been using her unconscious body as a party prop. Her boyfriend came and picked her up. They went to urgent care. Physically, she was okay. She had been drugged with something to knock her out, but she hadn't been fully violated in the traditional sense. But the mental violation, that doesn't go away. And the worst part, it didn't end there. A few days later, she started getting text messages from a random number. At first, they were just weird questions. Then he sent a picture. It was a picture of her torso taken while she was unconscious that night. He started texting creepy things implying he was watching her. "I liked your outfit today," or "You look pretty when you sleep." To this day, she still gets texts from random numbers. She doesn't know who he is. She doesn't know if he's the guy from the party or someone else. She lives in constant fear, waiting for the day he decides to do more than just text. This happened a few years ago. It's a story about a random encounter that turned into a 4-hour fight for survival. A college student and her roommates were walking to a party at dusk. A group of 3 drifters, 2 men and a woman who looked homeless, catcalled them. The girls ignored them and kept walking. Hours later, the student got separated from her group. She was walking back to her apartment alone to change her shoes. Suddenly, she saw the three drifters again. They cornered her. One of the men asked, "Where can we find a liquor store?" Trying to be helpful and just get away, she pointed down the street. "It's near the Kroger," she said. "Show us," the man said. And before she could react, they shoved her into their beat-up car. She thought, okay, they'll just drive to the store and let me out. But the store was closed. She pleaded, "Please, just let me go." The driver laughed. He didn't turn around. He just merged onto the freeway. They were leaving the city. She started screaming, "What do you want? Take my money." The man in the passenger seat turned to her. His eyes were dead. He smiled and said a phrase she will never forget. "The power does what it wants." That was it. No logic, no reason, just the power does what it wants. For the next 4 hours they drove. They crossed state lines. They went through 3 different states. The whole time they talked about her as if she wasn't there. They discussed how they were going to have fun with her. They talked about finding a cliff to throw her off. She sat in the back seat, paralyzed with terror. She accepted that she was going to die. She thought about her family, her classes, her friends. She realized she would never graduate. They pulled into a gas station. She tried to slip out, screaming for the clerk to help, but the men were too fast. They grabbed her by the hair and threw her back in. But something changed. Maybe the girl in the group felt bad, or maybe the victim's lie worked. She told them, "My family is full of police officers. They are tracking my phone right now. They know exactly where we are. If you take me back, I won't say anything." The homeless woman looked at the men. "Guys, she's really scared. Maybe we should just drop her. This doesn't have to get worse." After an agonizing argument, they turned the car around. They drove her all the way back to the campus area. As the car slowed down, the woman opened the door and shoved the student out onto the pavement. Before she closed the door, the woman leaned out and yelled, "The power does what it wants, and tonight, I'll let you live." A police officer nearby heard the commotion and ran over. He called her name. She collapsed into his arms. They chased the car, but she never found out if they were caught. She transferred schools. Her roommate dropped out and joined the military. The power does what it wants. It's a chilling reminder that some people don't need a motive to destroy you. They just do it because they can. This final story happened when I was 12 years old. I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic community. The legend of La Llorona, the weeping woman who drowned her children, was a huge part of our culture. Every Halloween, teens would go down to the river park to see if they could spot her ghost. It was a tradition. That year, my older brother, who was 17, took me trick-or-treating early so I could get home before dark. On our way back, we passed the river park. We saw a group of people putting on a play. It looked like a performance of the La Llorona story. There was no audience, just us and a few other kids. We decided to sit on the grass and watch. A woman from the group came up to me. She smiled warmly and dropped a comic book into my trick-or-treat bag. "For later," she whispered. The play started, but immediately something felt off. The woman playing La Llorona stopped acting and pointed directly at me and my brother. "What religion are you?" she screamed. My brother, confused, shouted back, "Roman Catholic." The woman's face twisted in anger. La Llorona was Catholic too, and now she burns in hell for her sins. She started screaming that Halloween was evil, that we were all going to burn. The play turned gruesome. She held up a fake fetus and pretended to eat it. It was grotesque. It wasn't a play. It was a cult recruitment. My brother grabbed my hand. "We're leaving," he said. As we stood up, the actors broke character. They started yelling, "Sit down. You need to be saved." We ignored them and walked faster. Then they started following us. Not just one or two, the whole group. They marched behind us, chanting prayers, singing songs about saving our souls from the devil. My brother started running, dragging me along. We ran all the way to our street. They were still behind us, screaming. We burst into our house and locked the deadbolt. My brother ran around checking all the windows. Our dad came home 15 minutes later. The group was still on our front lawn, chanting and swaying. My dad had to call the police to force them off the property. That night, to calm down, I sorted my candy. I found the comic book the lady had given me. I opened it. It wasn't a superhero comic. It was a horrifying propaganda booklet. It showed a little boy who went to a haunted house, got hit by a car, and was dragged to hell by demons because he hadn't accepted the truth. I had nightmares for weeks. But here's the part that haunts me to this day. Years later, I asked my mom if she remembered that night. She went pale. She told me that for years after that incident, we would find envelopes on our porch. They had my name and my brother's name handwritten on them. Inside were more of those creepy comics and notes saying, "We are praying for you. Come, join us. We have cake." They knew our names. They knew where we lived. And for years they were watching us, waiting for us to come back to the river. Those were 5 stories that prove the world is a much darker place than we like to admit. We spend so much time afraid of ghosts, ghouls, and goblins. But the truth is the dead can't hurt you. The dead don't drive cars across state lines. The dead don't drug your drinks. And the dead don't hide behind masks pretending to be children. It's the living you need to worry about. So this Halloween, when you're out there in the dark and you see someone in a mask staring at you for just a little too long, don't assume it's a costume. Trust your gut. Lock your doors and stay safe, because you never know who or what is watching you from the shadows. If you enjoyed these animated stories, make sure to subscribe for more horror stories animated in the future. Good night.